Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, breaking news out of the Middle East as Saudi troops have repelled a major attack on the Saudi border by the Houthi rebels from Yemen. We have the breaking details on tonight's program. In Syria, an arms dump has exploded in the Denzar Ans province, killing many Daesh terrorist militants. We'll have that story as well tonight. In the UK tonight, David Cameron and Ed Miliband have faced tough questions from an audience over their economic plans in the final television event of the election campaign, as we are 1 week away from British UK elections. U.S. Navy is to assist U.S. flagged ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And Bernie Sanders has entered the U.S. presidential race. We have all those stories and more. Plus, in global socialism tonight, South Africa adds its name to the list of the assisted suicide list. We have all those stories and more. Plus the one, the only, it's Corey Evan.
Thank you, Jen. I can't wait to hear about that one out of South Africa. I've got the latest rescue updates out of the rubble in Kathmandu, and you're going to love this one. Jeffrey Dahmer's killer tells us all why he did it. Got tattoos? Got an Apple Watch? You got problems. Airbus takes us on a special flight around the world in today's special edition Lawsuits Across the World. And was Kendall Jenner the first ever victim of drone vandalism? Ooh. You're going to want to listen to this edition of your conservative news source, the Evan Miller Report, because it starts now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Public Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
Good evening on this Thursday, April the 30th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller, along with Corey Evan this evening, and it's another hot one for the books, ladies and gentlemen, here in Southern California, as summer really never officially ended here in the state of California, I think.
I don't think so either, and what a day to spend your birthday on, I would say, at least my birthday.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Corey Evans' birthday, and to sing a little bit out of an old animated Disney movie. Happy birthday to Cor. Happy birthday to Cor. I won't tell his age, or the lucky ladies will go after him.
Yeah, I don't want that happening because I'm getting married in June and I don't want anything to spoil it.
You don't want no Marcia incidents. All right.
You just had to bring up the Marcia.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, happy birthday to Corey Evan nonetheless. And, of course, we at SHR appreciate what Corey Evan does week in and week out, whether it has to do with the Evan Miller Report or the SHR Weekender. Speaking of which, folks, we have a programming note to tell you about. Due to us traveling up to the 15th Annual Eagle Forum Conference on Saturday, we will have a late edition of the Evan Miller Report tomorrow, starting at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific time here on the SHR Media Networks. Everyone will be traveling tomorrow, so we will have a late edition tomorrow of the program. So stay tuned and make adjustments to your time clocks half hour later than usual tomorrow as we.
And I've got a programming note as well. The SHR Weekender is going to be a live edition this time around at the Costa Mesa Eagle Forum Conference Saturday at noon, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a big day on Saturday, and our coverage of the 15th Annual Eagle Forum Conference starts at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. So we hope you tune in for the broadcast here. Here's a little preview. I'm Jason Miller. Join us Saturday, May the 2nd for the 15th Annual Eagle Forum Conference. Troops, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on shrmedia.com. Some of our speakers include Dr. Mary Byrne, special education expert, Pastor Rafael Cruz, father of Senator Ted Cruz, and Ann Shafley Corey, the president of the Missouri Eagle Forum.
The California Eagle Forum Conference on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
And once again, if you didn't hear before, our pre-conference coverage starts once again at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the SHR Media Network and Pundit Press Radio. Special guests include Orleen Kurla, Eagle Forum's president here in California, also our SHR Global Affairs correspondent. Also, Ed Martin, the president of the National Eagle Forum, will be joining us live from Chicago, as well as many other guests on the program as we count you down to the start of the 15th Annual Eagle Forum Conference right here on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. We're looking forward to a great day of conservative education, and we'll bring you more details to come on the program. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a lot of news to get to tonight, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it, and we'll be back with Corey Evan in a couple minutes. He has the latest out of Nepal tonight and a few other international stories. But first, we start off with that breaking news tonight coming out of Saudi Arabia tonight. Saudi troops have rebelled a major attack on their border by Houthi rebels from Yemen, according to the Saudi state media. Airstrikes carried out by the Saudi-led coalition have targeted the Shia Muslim rebels since late March, as we have been reporting. But this is the first major assault on Saudi territory since the strikes began. According to the Saudi state reports, they say dozens of rebels were killed. As fighting continues, aid groups say lack of fuel is severely hampering their operations in Yemen. A statement by the Saudi press agency said the attack happened on its southern border near the Saudi town of Najjar on Thursday, identifying the attackers as Houthi rebels and groups allied to them. Said the Saudi ground exchanged fire with them and called in airstrikes. The rebels, who control much of northern Yemen, including the capital Sana'a, have been fighting forces linked to the government for several months. Saudi Arabia and other Arab states have been carrying out airstrikes since late March with the declared aim of restoring exiled President Abdul Mansur Hadi, the president of Yemen. Stay with the Evan Miller Report for more on this developing story as information becomes available. An arms dump has exploded in the Enzar province in Syria, killing 25 Daesh militants, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a UK-based activist group. A large explosion in the town of Al-Medhinan was followed by several smaller blasts, the group has said. It is not clear if the blasts were caused by an attack or by accident. Syrian civil war, which began 4 years ago, has killed more than 200,000 Syrians and displaced 11 million. Much of Syria's eastern province of Deir ez-Zor is under the control of Daesh. The militants last year also seized a broad belt of territory in northern Iraq. The SOHR website said the explosions took place in a Daesh warehouse containing bombs. 20 militants were wounded in the blast, according to the activist group. Meanwhile, a hardline Islamic rebel alliance has captured a Syrian border crossing near the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, according to the SOHR, which is the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The group says the group crossing at the southern Qantar border was seized by fighters from the Autar al-Sham alliance, which has been fighting Daesh-linked rebels as well as forces loyal to the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. All right, folks, I'll be back in a couple minutes with the latest on the UK elections, and as we approach the final week until Election Day in the UK. But first, I send it over to Corey Evan. He has the latest out of Nepal this evening.
Yes, I do, Jay. Hundreds cheered as rescuers toiling amid rubble left by Nepal's earthquake pulled a boy and a woman to safety on Thursday after they had been trapped for 5 days, according to Reuters. A 23-year-old maid, Krishna Devi Kadka, was found lying along with the bodies of 3 other people, police said. Officials said the chances of finding more survivors were fading as the death toll reached 5,858. But Nepal's armed police force managed to save 15-year-old Pema Lama from the collapsed ruins of Kathmandu's Hilton Hotel. Oh dear, they lost the Hilton. Away from the capital, aid was finally reaching some of Nepal's remote towns and villages nestled among mountains and foothills where the extent of the damage and loss of life has yet to be properly assessed. From an army helicopter flying from Chhatara, northeast of Kathmandu, toward the Tibet border, a Reuters witness estimated 70 to 80% of buildings had been severely damaged. In a remote village, an army medical team treated injured locals and soldiers supervised the unloading of goods on a muddy expanse of ground next to a school that served as a helipad. In Chhatara itself, a few people cleared rubble from the upper floors of their houses and mixed cement by the roadside as the long rebuilding process began. Many Nepalis have been sleeping in the open since Saturday's quake. According to the UN, the United Nations, 600,000 houses have been destroyed or damaged. It said 8 million people had been affected, with at least 2 million in need of tents, water, food, and medicines over the next 3 months. An official from Nepal's Home Ministry said the number of confirmed deaths from the 7.8 magnitude quake had risen to 5,800 by Thursday afternoon, and almost 13,800 were injured. Big numbers there. Anger over the pace of the rescue has flared in some areas, with Nepalis accusing the government of being too slow to distribute international aid that flooded into the countries. It is yet to reach many in need, particularly in areas hard to reach given the quake damage and poor weather. Tensions between foreigners and Nepalis desperate to be evacuated have also surfaced. In Langtang Valley, where 150 people are feared trapped, a helicopter pilot was taken hostage by locals demanding to be evacuated first, one report said. And I'm beginning to get a news flash at my desk, so it's time to send it back to Jason Miller with breaking news.
Yes, Corey, we do have breaking news here on the Evan Miller Report. We're going to go live now here to BBC World News now, as we have breaking news now out of downtown Baltimore right now, as they have shut down the freeways, ladies and gentlemen. The protesters have taken over again. Let's join Kasha Madeira on BBC World.
They are protesting over the death of an African-American man a couple of weeks ago. That man, Freddie Gray, 25-year-old Freddie Gray, who died a week after sustaining injuries after being arrested by Baltimore police. Those events took place in Baltimore, but protests have been spreading throughout various U.S. cities, and this is the image live from Philadelphia, where officers have been trying to steer protesters away from blocking the highway, and at the moment they are being allowed to carry on with their protest. But local reports are suggesting that the main body of the crowd will continue their protest. They won't attempt to block the highway, but police just trying to keep that under control. And of course, as you will recall, Freddie Gray, 25-year-old Freddie Gray, sustained fatal injuries while in police custody. Demonstrations flared in many U.S. cities when a grand jury declined to indict the officer involved, and this has led to these protests. We'll, of course, keep an eye on this for you.
Thank you very much, Kasha Madeira from BBC World News with the live breaking news out of Philadelphia. I apologize, our feed was a bit confused. I thought that was Baltimore, and that is indeed Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen, where crowds have started to take over the streets over there, and we'll keep you up to date on that breaking news as it continues to develop here on the Evan Miller Report. And we should note that the police department did finish their investigation and send the information over to the prosecutor in Baltimore today. No other reports than that, and as soon as we get any more information, we'll bring it to you here on the Evan Miller Report. All right, I did interrupt my co-host Corey Evan there in the middle of one of his stories. I'm going to go ahead and send it back to him in Los Angeles.
I just finished up my story out of Nepal, so it's time to move on to snubbing Vladimir Putin. Kim Jong-un has canceled a rare planned state visit outside North Korea, shunning an event hosted by Vladimir Putin with just 10 days' notice. The dictator had been due to travel, according to the UK Independent, to Moscow for celebrations marking the 70th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, but will now miss the Victory Day parade on May 9th. According to NBC News, Putin's spokesperson confirmed to reporters that Kim would be missing the event. He has decided to stay in Pyongyang, said Dmitry Peskov, adding that this decision is related to North Korea's internal affairs. The decision could be a blow to the burgeoning diplomatic relations between the two states. Kim was among just 26 world leaders who accepted invites to the event, a major holiday in the Russian calendar. Last month, state media in North Korea claimed that it and Russia had declared a year of friendship for 2015, focused on improving business and cultural ties. The Moscow parade would have been Kim's first foreign visit in his official capacity as North Korea's leader, and it has been suggested that it represented an odd choice given the large number of foreign dignitaries involved. With a state as closed off as North Korea, it's difficult to speculate on what the internal affairs referenced by Mr. Peskov might be. But according to South Korea's spy agency, Kim recently oversaw the execution of 15 senior officials as part of a purge carried out on the basis of a number of alleged crimes. Yeah. And speaking of alleged crimes, German Chancellor Angela Merkel is under pressure over claims that German intelligence services spied on top French officials and the EU Commission, according to the Daily Mail. Angela Merkel's government was under pressure this evening over claims that German intelligence services spied on top French officials and the European Commission on behalf of the Americans. Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. But at any rate, the revelation comes months after Mrs. Merkel rallied against America over reports fueled by whistleblower Ed Snowden that the U.S. spy agency, the NSA, was guilty of hacking her own mobile phone. The government refused to comment today on stories in the German press, claiming it would only answer to a parliamentary committee in due course. Privately, Ms. Merkel and her closest aides are fuming at the intelligence link and have ordered a security clampdown. There we are. According to other reports, Mrs. Merkel was informed as early as 2008 of American economic espionage in Europe, but did not act on the warnings. The Süddeutsche paper said spying on companies could only have taken place in isolated cases in a hunt for information on illegal exports. Define illegal, Mrs. Merkel. Thank you. Right, that's what I've got internationally, Jay, and I understand you've got an update on the UK elections.
Yes, I do, Corey. Thank you very much for that. David Cameron and Ed Miliband have faced tough questions from a Question Time audience, that's a BBC News program, over their economic plans in a final TV event of the election campaign as we approach the final week until the election on May the 7th. The Prime Minister said he rejected an £8 billion in child benefit cuts the Lib Dem party claimed the Tories had proposed in government. Ed Miliband said Labour did not overspend when in power and that he would not lead a government if it involved a deal with the likes of the SNP. Nick Clegg was grilled over tuition fees, trust, and coalition deals. Three other leaders also faced questions. In Glasgow, SNP leader Nicola Sturgeon predicted Mr. Miliband would not be able to get his policies through without working with other parties. UKIP leader Nigel Farage said on a programme broadcast in England and Wales that an EU referendum deal would not kill his party. Plaid Cymru's leader Leanne Wood refused to rule out a deal with Labour in a BBC TV special from Cardiff. The Conservative leader David Cameron and the current Prime Minister was first in the firing line at the Leeds Town Hall. Mr. Cameron said he did not want to cut the child benefit or child tax credits if he won the election, but that it was possible to save more from the welfare budget. Asked if it amounted to an absolute guarantee, he said the child tax credit would not fall, and child benefit was one of the most important benefits there is and did not need to change. Brandishing the note left back in 2010 by outgoing Labour Treasury Secretary Liam Burns, stating that there was no money left in the Treasury, Mr. Cameron said, quote, "It takes a long time to fix the mess that I was left with 13 years with Labour. We are halfway through a building job," the Prime Minister added. Asked if his vow to pass laws preventing tax rises was an admission he usually lied, Mr. Cameron said he wanted to put the policy beyond doubt. He also said he had not agreed to a head-to-head debate with Mr. Miliband because, quote, this giving you the chance to answer questions directly, this is more powerful than a televised debate. Mr. Cameron was then asked why people did not trust the Conservatives on the NHS, replying that improving the health service was my life's work, but only possible with a strong economy. He refused to speculate on what might happen in the event of a hung parliament, saying he did not want to do a deal in a darkened room with the likes of Nick Clegg, but said an in-and-out referendum on the EU would be a red line in any coalition negotiations. And stay with the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media for the latest on the UK general elections. As we approach the final week before Election Day on May the 7th, our coverage of voting starts at 1 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific on May the 6th. That's May the 7th for those of our friends on the East Coast, and about 6 a.m. British Standard Time for our folks listening over in the UK. Stay tuned to SHR Media for the latest on the British elections. Other international news stories we're following today. Defense officials have said that U.S. Navy ships will accompany U.S.-flagged commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz to make sure they are not interfered with by the likes of Iran. Iranian patrol boats surrounded a U.S. cargo ship in the strait this past Friday. Earlier this week, Iranian naval ships reported firing warning shots near a Marshall Islands flagged cargo ship before seizing it and its crew. The strait connects the Arabian Sea and the Persian Gulf. The U.S. Navy will not be escorting the ships, a different procedure from the accompanying them. Instead, it will monitor the area as the ships pass across the strait. The crew of the Marshall Islands flagged container ship seized by Iran in the strait on Tuesday are safe and in good spirits, according to the Danish shipping company Maersk. Maersk said it did not know the reason why the Marshall Islands flagged vessel was seized and noted it had been in an international shipping lane. Iranian media cited an official as saying the ship was seized based on a court order in connection with a complaint made by a private Iranian company about debts. The crew includes a British national, but no Americans on board, as initial reports have suggested. The narrow strait lies partially in Iranian waters. Shipping traffic is allowed to pass through under an internationally recognized protocol called the Innocent Passage, so long as the ships are not carrying weapons, collecting intelligence, or violating other restrictions. Over to Germany now, where police there believe they have foiled an alleged terror plot near Frankfurt. Officers raided a flat in the town of Urskol and reportedly found a pipe bomb, an assault rifle, and bomb-making chemicals. Police confirmed that a man and a woman had been detained overnight. Local media said the couple have been under surveillance since one of them bought a large quantity of hydrogen peroxide using a fake name. This hydrogen peroxide triggered an alert, said Frankfurt's deputy chief prosecutor Stephen Roski when speaking with the AP news agency. He said, quote, police figured out who bought it and it was decided to act fast. According to the BBC's Jenny Hill, who's in Berlin, she says that the hydrogen peroxide is often used to make explosives. Peter Buth, the Hessian State Interior Minister, said the arrest had foiled a possible terrorist attack and that the two suspects were thought to have links to Islamic extremists, according to the DPA news agency has been reporting. But Mr. Rustek told the AP news agency that he could not confirm whether the couple were connected to the like of Islamic militants. He said, quote, everything is being evaluated and this may take some time. Local media report that one of the suspects had been seen close to the site of a bike race that is due to take place on Friday, and this may have triggered the anti-terror raid. Heavily armed police officers stormed the couple's apartment early on Thursday, German time. All right, folks, as I have said often on this program, we don't often cover stories in space, but when we do, it's usually in an accident of a sort. In this case, it was, as Corey Evan would state, a massive explosion.
Sí, explota.
NASA's Messenger mission to Mercury has reached its, as Corey Evans said, explosive conclusion after 10 years in space and 4 in orbit. Now fully out of fuel, the spacecraft smashed into a region near Mercury's North Pole, out of sight from Earth at about 2000 GMT on Thursday. Mission scientists confirmed the impact minutes later when the craft's next possible communication pass was silent. Messenger reached Mercury back in 2011 and far exceeded its primary mission plan of 1 year in orbit. That mission ended with an inevitable collision. Messenger slammed into our solar system's smallest planet at about 8,750 miles per hour, 12 times quicker than the speed of sound. The impact will have completely obliterated this history-making craft, and it only happened because Mercury has no thick atmosphere to burn up upcoming objects. The same reasons its surface is so poorly marked by impact craters. According to calculations, the 513 kg 3-meter craft will have blasted a brand new crater the size of a tennis court, but that lasting monument is far too small to be visible from Earth. Messenger's fuel supply, half its weight at launch, was completely spent weeks ago, but 4 final maneuvers were conducted to extend the flight as long as possible. These were accomplished by venting the helium gas normally used to pressurize actual rocket fuel into the thrusters. The last of those maneuvers took place back on April the 28th. Really, it just reminds me, Corey Evan, of that time when I was in elementary school. We're doing science experiments. Wow.
Oh, man. I remember the days of studying the solar system back when Pluto was a planet.
Indeed. And we're still as fascinated about space today as we were back then. And, of course, no one can ever forget when we first went up to the moon during the time of JFK. People who lived and witnessed that during
yes. You know you're a baby boomer when you remember watching on live TV as Neil walked on the moon.
Absolutely right. But let's not get too nostalgic on space talk. On that note, let's go ahead, take a break here on the Evan Miller Report for this Thursday. When we return on tonight's program, socialist Bernie Sanders throws his hat into the presidential race. In global socialism tonight, Southern African court grants a man a right to die. And the U.S. will not fund research for modifying embryo DNA. More on that. Plus, Corey Evan has some of the day's other news here in the U.S.
Right. In business, I go into the latest tech innovations out of Apple, including a little problem with Apple Watch. If you got tattoos, this is vital listening for you. In lawsuits across the world, Airbus takes us on a special flight as they deal with a lawsuit of their very own. And the latest Arnold film poster is now out for your viewing pleasure. That's all coming up in this edition of the Evan Miller Report. I'm Corey Evan. Jason Miller's in San Diego. You're listening to SHR Media. We will be right back after this message.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberty, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion. or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Join us Saturday, May the 2nd for the 15th Annual Eagle Forum Conference, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on shrmedia.com. Some of our speakers include Dr. Mary Byrne, special education expert, Pastor Rafael Cruz, father of Senator Ted Cruz, and Ann Schlafly Corey, the president of the Missouri Eagle Forum.
The California Eagle Forum Conference on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Corey Evan, and this is your national news brief. From CNN, the man who beat serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer to death inside a Wisconsin prison says he did it because of Dahmer's creepy sense of humor, which included turning prison food into fake limbs covered with ketchup to resemble blood, the New York Post reports. Yeah, I know. Gross, right, Jay? Christopher Scarver, who was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison for killing Dahmer and another man at Columbia Correctional Institution in 1994, said the confessed cannibal would leave the fake limbs around the prison where others would find them. Yeah, and on that note, I'll leave that story for another day. The NSA's phone snooping program is likely on its last legs after a key House committee voted overwhelmingly Thursday to end the Patriot Act's bulk collection powers that the government was relying on to keep the phone program up and running. While just a first step, the vote signaled that the Patriot Act has lost support in the 2 years since former government contractor Edward Snowden exposed the phone snooping program. The vote also proved there's not enough support to renew the existing Patriot Act. First deadline. Woohoo! And school officials for a Tennessee county school district said they are trying to figure out why meat that was frozen more than 5 years ago was served to students at multiple schools. A pork roast was... Yeah, I know, right? A pork roast was served at schools in Hawkins County on April 22nd, even though it was frozen in 2009, a county official said.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to have an official pot roast!
Yeah, something about that. I was wondering why this roast was so tough. Yeah, and now the school director for Hawkins County, Steve Starnes, told ABC affiliate WATE, or W8, in Knoxville, that the school was now running inventory on food to ensure no years-old meat will be served again. Get it, W8?
ATE, that's funny.
Yes, I know. That's brilliant, actually. What an ironic thing that a food story ends up on W8 TV.
W8 TV. Where you get 8 for dinner. W8 TV. Where you get those Breaking Bad food stories 24/7. W8 TV. Corey, take the next story, because I could go on with this all
That's what
night.
I've got for you in our national news segment. And now I've got business, unless you've got any objections.
Let's go for the markets as we take closing bell.
Yes, we had a lot of fun with that one. Hopefully no more 5-year-old food will be served at a public school again, but we've got a lot more than that to complain about the public schools. And we've got this complaint about the Dow was down 195 points today at 17,840. The Nasdaq down 82 at 49.41. And the S&P down 21 points at 20.85. Not a great day for them. But Bloomberg say the American job market shows signs of entering a new stage that will bolster households as employers fight to retain and attract workers by paying. Wages for private sector employees climbed 0.7% in the first quarter and were up 2.8% in the 12 months through March, the biggest gain in more than 6 years, the Labor Department reported Thursday. The agency also said the number of claims for jobless benefits declined last week to the lowest level since 2000. A sell-off in tech paired the monthly gain for the S&P 500 index. The benchmark gauge fell 1% to close at the close in New York. The Labor Department's total employment cost index, which included wage and benefits, also climbed 0.7% in the first quarter from the prior 3 months. But otherwise, ExxonMobil and Royal Dutch Shell on Thursday reported sharply lower quarterly earnings as improved profits from marketing and refining were offset by the impact of the plunge in oil prices since last summer. The results were somewhat better than expected by analysts, and executives expressed optimism about their company's futures. ExxonMobil, the largest American oil company, reported a 46% decline in earnings, $4.9 billion for the first quarter compared with $9.1 billion in the year-ago quarter. Revenue fell to $67.6 billion from $106.3 billion, a 36% decline. In a signal of strength, though, Exxon, which is based in Irving, Texas, cut capital and exploration expenses by almost 10% to $7.7 billion, but oil production rose anyway by more than 2% to 2.3 million barrels a day, or about 3% of global daily production. The company benefited from new production in the Gulf of Mexico, Angola, and, wait for it, Jay, Mother Russia.
Mother Russia? What the hell?
Yes. I know, they're in the middle of sanctions, and yet we still benefit from them. Oh my goodness. Moving on from Fox News, Apple is working with IBM to deliver iPads and high-tech services to seniors in Japan. The two tech giants have joined forces with Japan Post Group, which provides postal, banking, and insurance services. The initiative aims to improve the quality of life, they say, for millions of Japanese senior citizens via iPads running IBM-developed apps and analytics. The apps can provide reminders and alerts about meds, exercise, and diet, community activities, and services such as going grocery shopping. IBM's cloud services will be used to provide security analytics and management of the devices. A pilot project offered in conjunction with... Yes, it's the cloud, Jay. It's offered in conjunction with Japan Post Group's Watchover service, which checks in on seniors, and it'll begin in the second half of the year. And from the Huffington Post, your parents said you'd regret getting that wrist tattoo, but this wasn't what they had in mind, probably. Reports are emerging that the Apple Watch can't properly sense tattooed skin. The problem, dubbed Tattoo Gate, is flummoxing inked-up techies. Some of the watch's functions, like Apple Pay and push notifications, work only when the device senses it's attached to a person's wrist. When the watch is removed, it goes dark and prompts the wearer for their passcode. A number of people, including a reputable Apple blog, have noted that heavy tattoos seem to trick the watch into behaving like it's not being worn. The issue appears to have first surfaced on an Apple subreddit. On Tuesday, Redditor Gune55 fan, I don't know if I pronounced that right, posted that his new Apple Watch wasn't working on his tattooed wrist. Ladies and gentlemen, if you got tattoos on your wrist, hopefully it's not both wrists so you can switch the Apple Watch to the other one, but I understand why that would be a bit flummoxing, to say the least.
Monica,
what do you have to say about this?
What did I tell you about putting a picture of Bill Clinton on your wrist? That's not cool.
Exactly.
Your damn Apple Watch is not going to work. Come on.
Yes,
That's baloney.
we take a stab at Monica
Lewinsky.
Lewinsky.
Come on.
Yes, and that ends the business report now. What do you got in good old Washington, D.C., Jay?
Well, Corey Evan, the news in D.C. is, as the news in D.C. sometimes always is. First off, Bernie Sanders, U.S. Senator from Vermont, made his official announcement today that he is seeking the Democratic nomination for the President of the United States. He joins Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary race now, where some say he could push her policies to the far left. Known for his progressive political agenda, Mr. Sanders is a strong supporter of expanding the likes of social benefits and raising the minimum wage. The Democratic National Committee said it welcomed his announcement. This country today, in my view, Sanders said, has more serious crisis than any time since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Well, how have we heard that before? But back to the story. For most Americans, the reality is that they are working longer hours for lower wages. Mr. Sanders caucuses with Democrats, even though he was elected to Congress without any party affiliation. What he means to say is he ran as an independent, but is really a liberal. All right, back to the story. He is running for the Democratic nomination, he says, because running as a third-party candidate would diminish his chances of winning the presidency. Unlike other major candidates who announce their presidential ambitions at large rallies outside of Washington or over the internet, Mr. Sanders made his announcement at a podium set up at the Capitol Building's North Lawn. Interesting choice. With no opening music or videos, Mr. Sanders walked to the podium, made a short statement, took several questions from reporters that were already there. So, Hillary Clinton is going to have to beat someone if she wants to be the next Democratic nominee for president. People should not underestimate me, said Senator Bernie Sanders when he talked to the Associated Press yesterday, but the reality is he doesn't stand much of a chance against the juggernaut that is Hillary Inc., according to some. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll keep you up to date as the latest on the 2016 presidential election gets into high gear. All right, now on to the regular D.C. news outside of the presidential politics, that is. Republicans in the House of Representatives today passed the first joint House-Senate budget plan in 6 years on Thursday, a measure that aids the party's goal of dismantling Obamacare this year. The Republican-authored plan would eliminate deficits by 2024 through deep cuts to social programs while increasing military spending by nearly $40 billion next year. It passed 226 to 197, largely on party lines. No Democrats support it, while 14 Republicans vote against it. Well, I wonder who those 14 are. Let's give them a call, Corey Evan, and let's officially vote them out of office, shall we?
Good idea, Jay.
Right, let's move. The budget seeks to slash about $5.3 trillion from domestic spending about 10 years, with deep cuts to programs that serve the poor, education, and infrastructure. It contains no tax increases. Republicans hailed it as the first balanced budget plan since a brief period of the U.S. surplus through the years 1998 through 2001. A bid to end spy agencies' bulk collection of Americans' telephone data advanced in the House of Representatives also today, setting up a potential showdown over the program, which expires on June the 1st of this year. The House Judiciary Committee voted 25-2 to approve the USA Freedom Act, seeking to tighten control of program publicly exposed 2 years ago, as Corey Evan referenced by National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden. The bill would bar the bulk collection of Americans' telephone records under Section 215 of the USA Patriot Act and other intelligence authorities, and it will increase transparency and accountability in surveillance programs. A similar bill has been introduced in the Senate. All right, time for some political news now here across America today. Starting off in Illinois tonight, where their governor, Bruce Rauner, today reversed a $26 million spending cuts that he had forced the shutdown of a stop smoking hotline, ended funding for some autism programs, and indigent funerals. Officials at the governor's office said higher than expected personal income tax revenues allowed the Republican governor to restore the grants. Ooh, there's that bad word, ladies and gentlemen. It's grants. Oh boy, don't make me start singing. Let's just finish this story. He said, for social services in the budget that ends on June 30th, he said the cuts announced on April the 3rd came as a surprise after Rauner and the Democratic-controlled legislature had agreed to a 2.25% across-the-board cut in spending and a cash infusion from other state funds to plug a $1.6 billion gap. We'll keep you updated on that story, especially when it comes to grants.
Yeah.
All right, over to Texas, where the national debate over religious objection laws roiled again today in Texas after Republican lawmakers abruptly pushed a new proposal on the heels of the U.S. Supreme Court hearing historic arguments over gay marriage. Even advocates for same-sex couples say the bill aimed at allowing clergy members to refuse officiating marriages that violate their beliefs largely duplicates protections that already exist. However, the legislation drew attention because of its timing, weeks after filing deadlines that passed in the Texas Senate, and on the same day the landmark gay marriage case was heard in Washington. Republican State Senator Craig Estes said the timing of the bill he introduced Tuesday was coincidental, but that it didn't calm Democrats who felt blindsided and newly braced for the battle ahead. And we'll keep you up to date on that current battle. All right, folks, it is now time for our continuing battle, as we like to say here on the program. Corey Evan?
Global socialism!
Thank you very much for that. And as we start off in tonight's Global Socialism, we start off internationally tonight in South Africa, where the South African court has granted a terminally ill man the right to die in a landmark ruling for assisted suicide. The Pretoria High Court ruled that Rodham Streisfam Ford, 65, who was diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer back in 2013, could allow a doctor to help him end his life. Judge Hannes Fabra said the doctor treating him could not now be prosecuted or face disciplinary action. Campaign group Dignity SA says Mr. Streisfam Ford later died. He died peacefully of natural causes, said Dignity SA, which helped Mr. Streisfam Ford bring his case. Before they learned of his death, state prosecutors had said they would appeal against the ruling. The National Prosecuting Authority spokesman, Meta Magna, said the ruling was precedent-setting and had far-reaching implications from a health and constitutional point of view. Judge Fabras, quoted in local media, said the ruling applied only to Mr. Streisfam Ford and that future cases could be debated on their merits. Back here in the U.S., modifying the DNA of embryos is a line that should not be crossed. This coming from a leading figure in U.S. research. U.S. research says Dr. Francis Collins, from the National Institutes of Health, was responding to reports that the first embryos had been modified in China. He argued there were serious and unqualifiable safety issues, big ethical questions, and no compelling medical research to do it. He said the NIH would not fund such research in the U.S. The advert of CRISPR technology, which is a more precise way of editing DNA than anything has come before, has spurred huge progress in genetics, according to some. But there has been growing concern these tremendous advances were making the modification of human embryos more likely. Dr. Tony Perry, a pioneer in cloning, told BBC News back in January that designer babies were no longer H.G. Wells territory. Concerns were also raised in the journal Nature as rumors circulated that had already taken place. And, ladies and gentlemen, that is tonight's Global Socialism. And now it's time for that classic Out Q segment. Cue Corey Evan.
Thank you, Jay. So, what happened to the days when folks endured to the end? When did eating milk and cookies at school become a cardinal sin and gay marriage not a sin? And where's my turkey pot roast? Stay tuned for developments in our continuing battle against global socialism.
Thank you very much, Corey. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for lawsuits across America.
And now it's time for lawsuits across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Thank you as always, Pat Hahn. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated, come to order, and make sure your tray tables are up and your seat backs back and your seat belts buckled. Lawsuits around the world. In session. Aviation giant Airbus says it will... Thank you, Bailiff. Aviation giant Airbus says it will file a criminal complaint over allegations that German intelligence helped the U.S. carry out industrial espionage. This from the BBC. German media reports suggest the country's spy agency BND collected data on European firms at the behest of the U.S. NSA. An Airbus statement quoted by AFP news agency said it was alarmed by the reports, but did not want to speculate. The company said it had asked for more info from the German government. Leaks from a secret BND document suggests that its monitoring station at Bad Aibling checked whether European companies were breaking trade embargoes after a request from the NSA. Airbus was named by the German press as one of the firms that was targeted. It is believed that BND eavesdropped online and by phone and other communications in order to gather information. It's also alleged that it spied on France's presidential palace and foreign ministry and the European Commission. According to the reports, the agency did not target German or U.S. officials in their surveillance, as they are protected by a BND-NSA agreement signed in 2002. However, it has emerged that the German government knew about NSA spying on European arms businesses as early as 2008. The government found shortcomings in the BND's operation, German TV reports. Interior Minister Thomas de Maizière has denied claims of a cover-up. Mr. de Maizière said he has no knowledge of malpractice at German intelligence agencies, but called for the internal BND report to be presented to a parliamentary committee. And a day after Al Jazeera America was hit with a lawsuit that accuses a top executive of the news agency of being anti-Semitic and discriminating against women, a crime in my book, and, the head of the fledgling cable news network called a company-wide meeting. This from CNN. Staff members gathered in the New York City newsroom or watched through a live feed as Ihab al-Shihabi, the chief executive of the network, said he would fight the lawsuit. A person present at the meeting said that al-Shihabi urged staffers not to leak to the press. The meeting on Wednesday came a day after Matthew Luke, the network's former director of media and archive management, filed a $15 million workplace retaliation suit against AJAM. A spokesman for AJAM downplayed the significance of Wednesday's meeting, calling it routine. Luke had been with AJAM since its inception in 2013 before being fired in February. In the complaint, Luke alleges that he was dismissed shortly after complaining to HR that his boss, Osman Mahmoud, discriminated against women and made disparaging remarks about Israel and Jews. Yeah. According to the complaint, which was filed in the New York Supreme Court, Mahmoud pulled female employees off projects to which they had been previously assigned by other managers and excluded them from meetings and emails. And the complaint says that Mahmoud, AJAM's senior VP of broadcast operations and tech, said that supporters of Israel should die a fiery death in HE double hockey sticks. He once tried to replace an Israeli cameraman with a lesser qualified Palestinian cameraman, the complaint alleges. Luke's complaint said he was fired 10 days after complaining to HR. Gotta love it when they retaliate against you for just making a complaint about management. I mean, just because you're a manager doesn't mean that you have any right to stay a manager. Because you know that someday there'll be someone to replace you, you know. And on that note, it's time to declare today's lawsuits across America case dismissed.
Corey Evan with a depressing lawsuits across America, in my opinion, today. But
yes, grab your oxygen mask, passengers. You're going to need it to recover from that.
Decompression sequence, indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the latest in the old world of Hollywood, and Corey Evans.
Yeah, it looks like LA could use some help, Jay.
Schwarzenegger.
Yes, it looks like LA could use some help. Check out the all-new flame-filled Terminator Genesis poster, which I will send you, Jay, to post up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. And it features the Arnold, as well as Emilia Clarke, Jay Courtney, and Jason Clarke. The official plot summary for Terminator Genesis reads, when John Connor, leader of the human resistance against Skynet, sends Kyle Reese back to 1984 to protect his mother, Sarah, from a Terminator assassin, an unexpected turn of events created an altered timeline. Instead of a scared waitress, Sarah is a skilled fighter and has a Terminator guardian by her side. Faced with unlikely allies and dangerous new enemies, Reese sets out on an unexpected new mission: reset the future. Sounds like the kind of thing that Jay is going to be interested in, at least researching a little bit more once the film comes out, and I will give you the date on that as soon as it becomes available on my desk. Yeah, I don't yet.
Look forward to that.
Yes, and this one about Kendall Jenner coming to us from E! News, of course, and apparently she became a victim, believe it or not, of drone vandalism, if this article will work. There it goes. Do you need any further clarification, folks? If you do, here it is. One of the biggest billboards, the one in Soho of Kendall Jenner modeling for Calvin Klein, was vandalized by a hacked drone. Early Wednesday morning, Katsu, a famous graffiti artist and vandal, used a phantom drone to draw huge red lines across the brunette beauty's face, or what they call a brunette beauty, on the huge advertisement. And it's not just your everyday run-of-the-mill mischief-making, folks. This is said to mark one of the first uses of drones for a massive-scale act of public vandalism. Wired caught up with the man behind the work to find out what he thinks of his latest stunt, and apparently he's excited to see its first potential use as a device for vandalism. That's an interesting choice of words there, Mr. Katsu. And he documented how he performed the illegal act, saying that the whole process took less than a minute and was a bit tense. Yeah, I bet it was. And once the NYPD find out about this, I'm sure that you'll have the folks in blue showing up on your doorstep.
Riddance to bad rubbish. Good riddance to bad
At least it will be when the NYPD get on it. And NYPD, if you're not on it, why not?
Why?
Yeah. And at the box office this weekend, come on, behave here, iPhone. Have a little bit. There we are. It's Avengers: Age of Ultron, Far From the Madding Crowd, and Come to Me, all coming up at the box office this weekend. Last weekend, it was Furious 7 holding on for the fourth weekend in a row with an additional 17.8 million, I mispronounced it, in new receipts. Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 held on to second place, barely at 14.8 million, and The Age of Adeline, one of Jay's favorite films of 2015, at 13.2 million. Well, it is one of your favorite films of 2015 so far, isn't it?
I totally agree.
Yes, there you are.
That's why I
yeah,
said
one of these times I'll see it. Ah, that's what you said. I kind of misheard you on that. But I digress, ladies and gentlemen. That is your entertainment report. Hope to entertain you again tomorrow. Till then, Jay, take it away because I'm off to have some birthday cake.
And a happy birthday to you, Corey. Thank you very much. And as Corey Evan goes has his birthday cake, I will wrap up tonight's program. Thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, on the Evan Miller Report. Once again, just a reminder, tomorrow's program will be on a little later than our scheduled time of 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. We will be on at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, with a special edition of the Evan Miller Report, live from Los Angeles at the 15th Annual Eagle Forum Conference. And again, once again, our coverage for tomorrow's broadcast, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, right here on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Evan Miller Report for this Thursday, April the 30th, 2015. For Corey Evan, I'm Jason Miller saying so long. Up next is the National Weather Forecast with the BBC's Helen Willis tonight. Again, for all of us here at SHR, we wish you a great night. After the weather, it's the Exceptional Conservative Show with Ken McClellan. Good night, everybody.
After the deluge of recent days across the southern and southeastern corner of the USA, the good news is that through Thursday that weather system's moved away, but it's still affecting the Bahamas, the Caribbean and central parts of America, and it's still just giving some rains up the east coast as well through the Appalachians and heading its way towards New York, throwing a lot of rain, or cloud at least ahead of it, and affecting eastern parts of Canada. Some showers are making their way down through the northern and the central plains as well, and you can see there through the Colorado area as well. We're going to see some showers around, but it's drier further west, and it looks like a drier day as well across some parts of western Canada on Friday, not the intense rains that we've had recently, and some chance of drier weather, even some breaks in the clouds and some sunshine in Vancouver, 59-15 in Celsius here. Still warm and dry, little sign of any rain, unfortunately, where we need it further south in California. In fact, here the winds may pick up and increase the fire risk, so we need to watch that. Friday as well brings cloudier skies, as I mentioned, to northeastern parts of the United States and throwing some clouds towards the Great Lakes. In contrast, it is drier and warmer further south across Florida. Slightly cooler air following on behind that system, but that system still feeding heavy showers into the Bahamas. But you can see for New York, temperatures steadily recover as the sunshine returns on Sunday. You can see they're up to 72 in Fahrenheit. Further west, Vancouver seeing some sunshine, improving conditions, plenty of sunshine into the weekend. LA maintaining the heat and the sun.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.